those videos. Those are satisfying to me. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I really like them. So, as we see in this video, the book of Joshua starts off with the passing of the torch. We see in the very first sentence, Moses die and Joshua take over command. And I think it's kind of funny that in the past 4 books, it's been all about this great leader in Moses, who God has done so many great works in like through. And like we see, he parted the Red Sea when they were leaving Egypt, and he was with God on top of Mount Sinai, and he even got to see the aftermath of God's glory, which is insane. And all he gets is this one verse at the very beginning of the book that says, "Moses, my servant, is dead." And that's super humbling. I mean, like, he's been the main character of these past 4 books, and he gets this one sentence when he dies to remember him by. And yeah, and so like God uses Moses in many ways, and I think that's what we need to see, is that it's not Moses doing these things, but it's God doing them through him. And because without God, Moses is nothing. And I think that we need to see the same thing, and we need to realize and acknowledge that we are nothing without God as well, and without God we can do nothing of importance. And so the rest of the book is really divided kind of right down the middle into 2 or 3 different sections. And in the first 12 chapters, the first half, we see the Israelites cross the Jordan River and go in and conquer the land that has been promised to their ancestors. And then in the rest of the book, with the exception of like the last 3 chapters or so, we see Joshua dividing up this land that the Israelites just conquered and to the different tribes. And then in the last 3 chapters, we see Joshua's charge to the Israelites, and he tells them that they need to be loyal and faithful to the Lord, who led them into the promised land that he promised to their ancestors. And so we see a great example of this charge in chapter 24, verses 14 through 24, which says, "Now therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Then the people answered, "Far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For it is the Lord our God who brought us and our fathers up from the land of Egypt and out of the house of slavery, and who did those great signs in our sights, and preserved us all the way that we went, and among all the peoples through whom we went. And the Lord drove out before us all the peoples, the Amorites, who lived in the land. Therefore, we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God." But Joshua said to the people, "You are not able to serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do harm to you and consume you after having done you good." And the people said to Joshua, "No, but we will serve the Lord." Then Joshua said to the people, "You are witnesses against yourself that you have chosen the Lord to serve him." And they said, "We are witnesses." And he said, Then put away the foreign gods that are among you, and incline your heart to the Lord, the God of Israel." And the people said to Joshua, "The Lord our God we will serve, and his voice we will obey." So we see in this passage that the Israelites want to remain faithful to the Lord, but Joshua tells them that that is not possible. Like, they can't. Our God is a holy God who will have no other little g gods before him. And we see that even so, the Israelites are adamant that they will remain loyal and they will stay faithful to the Lord all the days of their lives. And we see throughout the book of Joshua that for the most part, they do remain faithful and they do remain obedient. And if we look back to a story in Joshua chapter 2, we see that Joshua sends 2 spies into the land to scout it out. And the spies go into a city called Jericho, and they meet a woman named Rahab, who hides the spies in her house so that they would not be discovered. And in return for her loyalty to the spies, and really her loyalty to God and his will, the spies agree to save Rahab and her entire family and anyone that's in her house when they go and take over the land of Jericho. And when the spies return to Joshua, they give him a very positive report. And then Joshua 2:24, they say, "Truly the Lord has given all the land into our hands, and also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us." So in contrast to this, if you look back to last week in the book of Deuteronomy, we see the same situation with the previous generation of Israelites, where Moses sends them into the land, and when they go into the land and come back, they have the complete opposite reaction that this generation had. They come back and they're terrified of the people in this land, and they tell all the people of Israel what they saw. And in Deuteronomy 1:28 through 32, it says, "Where are we going up? Our brothers have made our hearts melt, saying, 'The people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and fortified up to heaven, and besides, we have seen the sons of Anakim there.' Then I said to you," this is Moses speaking, "do not be in dread or afraid of them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, will himself fight for you, just as he did for you in Egypt, before your eyes, and in the wilderness, where you have seen how the Lord your God carried you as a man carries his son all the way that you went until you came to this place. Yet in spite of this word, you did not believe the Lord your God." So we see here in Deuteronomy that even after all that they had seen God do for them, all of the miracles that he performed for them, they were still afraid to enter into the promised land because the people in the land were bigger and stronger than them. They'd forgotten all about the fact that they had God on their side to fight for them and lead them into this land. So if we jump ahead a little bit to Joshua 22, we see this story that takes place after all of the land has already been divided up and the people are getting ready to go out and go out into their separate places. And there are 3 tribes in the east, the eastern tribes, and they decide to build an altar to the Lord to remember all that he had done for them. And so whenever anybody would look at it, they would remember how the Lord is faithful to them. And the other tribes hear about this altar, and there's kind of a slight misunderstanding. These other tribes remember back to their parents' generation, who built altars to other false gods who were opposed to the one true God. If you remember back a couple weeks ago in the book of Exodus, the golden calf is a great example of this. And so they go and they confront the 3 eastern tribes, and they are prepared for war. They bring soldiers, they bring horses, they bring chariots, and they're ready to go to war with the people of their own land because they remember that the Lord has commanded them that they should have no other gods above him. And when they confront the eastern tribes are kind of like, whoa, like, this isn't what it looks like, let's explain. And they go on to explain that this is only for remembrance, that this altar is kind of a callback to all the things that the Lord had done for them. And we see in verse 29 of chapter 22, they say, "Far be it from us that we should rebel against the Lord and turn away this day from following the Lord by building an altar for burnt offering, grain offering, or sacrifice other than the altar of the Lord that stands before his tabernacle." So, like I said before, we see in the book of Exodus, the Israelites ignored all that God had done for them in bringing them out of slavery in Egypt. And instead they decide to worship false idols who had done nothing for them and could do nothing for them. They go and they worship these metal objects that had no power and they could do nothing. And so this generation wanted to be different than their parents, and they wanted to be faithful to the Lord, so much so that they were willing to go to war with their own people to make sure that no one would stray from God. I mean, talk about accountability. That's insane. So we see in just these couple of instances that this generation of Israelites was faithful to the Lord, or at least more so than their parents' generation. But we also know that there's only been one who has ever been truly faithful to the Lord, and that is Jesus Christ, who in his perfect faithfulness humbled himself and took on human flesh to live the perfect life, to be raised up on the cross so that whoever would look to him would no longer be dead in their sins, but made alive to God through Christ Jesus. And this is kind of a theme that we see throughout the book of Joshua. We see this generation of Israelites striving to be faithful to the Lord, but ultimately they can't be. And there are many times when they turn to the things of the world instead of turning and trusting in God. And so we see a great example of this in chapter 7. The Lord told the Israelites when they took the promised land and they were going to drive out all the people in the land that they were not to take any of their treasures for themselves, and they were all supposed to be devoted to destruction. But there's this one man who they talked about in the video, Achan, who disobeys God, and he steals silver and gold and buries them in his tent so that no one could find them. And we see that this one man's sin does not just affect himself, that it affects so many different people around him. Because when he stole these things that were devoted to destruction, he broke the covenant that God had made with the Israelites. And so when the Israelites go into their next battle with the city of Ai, God hands them over and allows them to be defeated by this city. And when Joshua hears about this, he is mourning and he falls on his face and tears his clothes and is pleading with God, asking him why he would allow this to happen. And God tells him all that Achan had done and that someone had stolen the things that were devoted to destruction, and until these things are found and destroyed, that the Lord would no longer be with them. And so we then see that God guides Joshua as he goes tribe by tribe, looking for the man who stole these things, and he eventually settles on Achan, and Achan confesses, and Achan and his entire household are dealt with harshly, as the video put it. I don't think I have to go on explaining that anymore. I think you guys get it. And so Joshua, once they destroy these things, God tells